So much to talk about as the world gets crazier and crazier. Let's talk with this fellow Scott Pelley. Now, this goes back a ways because Scott Pelley was on 60 Minutes, and he was pretty full of himself. And he thought he'd go ahead and tell off the new management at CBS, and they didn't take well to it, and so they fired him, and then he threatened to sue them, and he hadn't been heard from since. So, you know, I ran and owned newspapers, business, been in some other businesses too, but mostly newspapers for well on the 40 years, and I had more than one kind of Scott Pelley guy working for me who sort of knew more than I knew and who felt that the future success of the business going forward was going to be dependent on him. I remember one guy came in, and he'd written a few columns somewhere else, and he was getting bylines, and people were yapping at him how good he is and all that stuff. So he comes into my office and offers himself to come to work for me, and said, I can make your newspaper. Well, now, you know, I'd already taken this newspaper, I don't know, I bought it, had 2 or 3 people working for it, and now I had 40 or 50 people working for it, you know. So it could be argued that I kind of managed to run the place pretty decently before this guy came on the scene. So, you know, I listened to him, and I thanked him, and wished him well, and he went off and went over to some other newspaper and started publishing whatever he was doing and so forth. And it's just that sort of mentality where folks are working for somebody else and they're cashing your check. And I used to say, you know, there was a period of time when I say, you know, these people are working for us all week and abusing us. And then we pay them on Friday. Something wrong with this picture. Another friend of mine earlier on, actually was more or less kind of in a tangent family. You know, I was complaining about an employer or two, and he said, "Well, have you forgotten? You know, they work for you." Okay, so what are you complaining about? You know, and this kind of leads us into, I guess, this fellow Graham Plattner with who was managed to get the nomination in Maine, of all places, to run for the United States Senate in this fall. Well, you know, it didn't take long before people started saying, "Well, you know, that tattoo you got there, pal, that's a Nazi tattoo." "Oh, I didn't know that." Really? And a woman came forward and said, "You know, by the way, this guy raped me." She's a Republican. You know, who can believe those? Mr. Plattner running as a Democrat. Now, he'd been found, Mr. Plattner had done virtually nothing. He said he's an oyster farmer, but supposedly those oysters he sells almost exclusively to his mother's restaurant. And Mr. Plattner was sent to Hotchkiss, which is a upscale prep school. Prep schools are from 9 to 12 ages, grades 9 to 12. And by the way, I'm a preppy. I went to a pretty well-known prep school. And what I've always said ever since was, look at what they got on Family Guy. Maybe they should have requested a refund. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Plattner's family should have gotten a refund from Hotchkiss. Anyway, some 27-year-old, 28-year-old activist and was his buddy who was maybe 34. They went shopping for somebody who they could dress up as far right as a social democrat. What's that? Well, you know, we're against the police, defund ICE. We want to have billionaires and millionaires, and probably you and me, you know, pay their fair share of taxes and so on and so forth. You know, so um, and they found and they dressed him out. He's a pretty articulate guy. If you, well, anyway, um, his end came when a Democratic woman who said, "Oh well, I agree with him on all his principles and policies here, but he raped me." Came in my house, told him to stop, and he didn't stop. And Mr. Plattner manages to deny anything that is doesn't put him in too good of a light. And in that sense, he reminds me of someone else, Donald J. Trump. Now, Mr. Trump, it should be said, I did vote for Mr. Trump in 2016, 2020, and 2024. And I don't regret those votes because I didn't vote so much for the Donald, as I had to vote against Hillary Clinton in 2016, Joe Biden, oh my goodness, in 2014 and 2020 rather, in 2024, I mean, Kamala Harris. And so now Mr. Trump has himself in a real pickle, I think. Well, first of all, let's go to his belief that he can say anything transactionally, and he expects people to believe him. So he goes out much, and by the way, he's done a lot of things that I do agree with, and which I think he's on the right track about. But his bedside manner is just plain awful. I mean, it's just. So, anyway, the reflecting pool on the mall in Washington D.C., which he kind of thought we should get it in better shape for the 250th anniversary, which was on July 4th, a few weeks ago. And so he goes in, and apparently he put some sort of new liner in and turned it blue, and then he says somebody came along and they ran a knife down the bottom of it for 250 feet. And the press said, well, that's terrible. Let's have a look. And Mr. Trump said, well, no, we'll get around to it. Sooner or later we'll do that. Because it's, this thing that they ran down the knife is 350. Wait a minute, you just said it was 250. 250? 350? Now we come to the airplane. So, Mr. Trump, who I don't doubt is on a lot of assassination lists around the world, was coming back from the NATO meeting, and he had flown this plane that had been given to him by some of the country, and they got it all fixed up and painted up, and it looks pretty nice if you had a look at it. But as he's getting ready to come back to the United States, the Israelis supposedly say, there's an assassination plot out here, right? So he flies this new plane up to London, London area, up to a base up in the United Kingdom, and Air Force One also flies, and he flies up on Air Force One, and then apparently the old Air Force One, not the new one, but it's been gifted. And then when they say, well, you got a reason for why you went to London? Yeah, well, I thought I'd let our troops up in England have a look at this new, it's really a great looking plane. So he flew it up there and let the guys wander around and have a look at it, Jesus, okay. And then finally, the war, I guess we're calling it a war now with Iran, which Trump, Mr. Trump has basically changed tactics 2 or 3 times. He was going to bomb them into the Stone Age when he stopped doing that for a while, and he thought he could negotiate. Who are you negotiating with? When you do negotiations, they want something and you want something. Well, we know what we want, and they are not wanting anything but to have a nuclear bomb, be left alone, control the Mideast. And we don't want that to happen. So I don't know what we were talking to these guys about, because we did. And they reached some sort of an agreement, which the vice president had his hands all over. He will live to regret that one in 2028, I am certain. And of course, their word's no good. Iranian word has never been any good. So what are you doing talking to the people who you can't believe and who don't tell the truth, and will agree to something and then it'll go away? Well, as we've gone along, it's been a little while since I've done these. So we've collected up some things to talk about. And one of my favorites to talk about right now would be what's called the exit tax. Now, there is a professor, well-known fellow, who's been up in Toronto teaching for any number of years, apparently. And he's decided he's kind of had enough of Canada, and he wants to come down. He's going to take a job down in Florida. Everybody's moving to Florida. Maybe I should move to Florida. But anyway, and so as he gets ready to leave Canada, he finds out Canada has an exit tax. You can't just leave. Oh, no. We're going to take, let me see if I get the actual figure on the exit tax. I didn't write it down, but I think it's like 20 or 30% of everything you got. Got to leave it in Canada. What? Well, so that makes me sort of wonder, I know New Jersey has an exit tax. If you sell your house and leave the state, well, they're going to take a chunk of it. What? So I said, who else? Well, so far, only one other state, and it's California, but they expect New York and Illinois and the Massachusetts and the other states who are leftists to do this. But right now, if you live in California, or if you live in New Jersey and you want to move, you'll have to pay a tax to move. Now, many years ago, I was a research fellow at the University of Missouri Journalism School, and I wrote about a half a dozen monographs on this subject or that, and one of them that I wrote, still in print, by the way, was on right to travel. Well, it seems to me that if you live in California and they want to snatch some of your money, or you live in New Jersey and they're essentially restricting your right to travel. And I would like to see what the Supreme Court would like to do with that one. Because again, what I researched was more than a few years ago, many decades ago, actually. But it may have not changed all that much. I don't know. But I think you have a pretty good case for that. Finally, and we're going to wrap up with this one. I look at probably 15 or so websites, domains, websites. Everything from the Wall Street Journal to Fox to AP, CBS, NBC, CBS News. I look at, who else do I look at? I look at Reuters. Anyway, there's just a whole bunch. We're not go down through them because I'm curious what they're leading with in any given day and what they have to say. And you do pick up some from different stuff as you go along. It's pretty clear that ABC is pretty far on the left, and obviously Fox is pretty much on the right. And Fox has this penchant for running crime news. An awful lot of crime news. It's trash. Crime news is easy. That's where you start a reporter out on. You can go down and write down what this was happening. Somebody stole Mrs. McGurdy's flag off her front at 2 o'clock. That kind of crap. And that's not news. News is information which we're putting out there to inform you, to make you a better, well-informed citizen, and to be anyway. But what's happening here is that these sites are beginning to put up a paywall. So you want to look at Washington Post? Can't do it unless you pay them. New York Times? Whoops, no. CNN is taking on this. MSNBC, or whatever they call themselves, MS Now, okay? And quite honestly, on one hand, I don't blame them, because if you subscribe to my paper, you subscribed to my paper and you paid me for the right, and I mailed it to you. But I didn't charge you very much, you know. But the point is, I did charge you. And New York Times, Washington Post, on, CNN, these other guys, you know, to a point that how are they going to make this? How are they going to make this work? Okay, well, you say, well, get advertising. Yeah, well, we have advertising, but you know, but the subscription base of my newspapers were about 15% of our volume, of our growth. So you know, it matters. But here's the point. We are getting less and less news. These news organizations have less and less reporters out there. They're reporting more and more on what somebody else is reporting. So you can go all the way from Fox, straight all the way across the spectrum to MSNBC, and you can find that they're all looking at the same story. A little bit of shift on it, but it's over the past weekend when Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina passed away unexpectedly. Bingo. It's the one story, everybody's on it, and so forth. When John McCain died some years ago, the network stayed on this story for a day. I think it was 2 full days. I think he died on a Saturday, maybe. It was Monday evening before we got any more news about, what color would John McCain's shoelaces. I mean, it covered everything. And we are in a increasing desert for news, and most importantly, news that we can trust. The President of the United States, he's just making it up as he goes along. And he's very transactional. And if you are believing what CNN is telling you, and if you're believing what Fox is telling you, and if you're believing what, Wall Street Journal also is telling you, you need to be skeptical. And you need to look at the adjectives, because if you take the adjectives out, then you actually may have a kernel of fact, and so on. I did a class on this. I did several. Actually, I used to open with the class of handing them a news article with a lot of adjectives, and then removing the adjectives, and the story went from 118 words down to 30 words, as I recall. And everybody went, ooh, hadn't thought of that. Well, think about it. So, lots to talk about these days, lots to worry about. Whether the Social Democrats really are on the march, whether Marxists, they want to call them communists. They certainly are emboldened socialists. And are they really making inroads or not? They certainly are with young white women. The women really loved Graham Patler up in Maine. They did. And elsewhere. And the demonstrators quite oftentimes are young, educated, well-to-do white women. By the way, they're not reproducing. For our reproduction down to 1.4 kids per woman. So we're kind of going away as a population, and this is happening worldwide. So as crazy as I consider these young, educated, white American women to be, nonetheless, they're not going to be raising more of the same unless they start having babies, which so far they haven't seemed like they want to do. Okay, that's it. we'll have more of this soon, and we'll be returning to a new subject on this site, where we're going to be talking about the long march of owning newspapers from 1969 to 2007, which was really the end of newspapers in the newspaper business plan. And in 2007, of course, I sold my newspapers to the Australians, and they put them in bankruptcy within 2 years.